My name is Evelyn Brooks. I used to be a senior elementary school teacher, dedicating my entire life to educating the next generation with care and diligence. I can tolerate many things, but being taken advantage of isn't one of them. I can endure quite a lot, but being openly manipulated? Never. Together with my husband Harold, we worked hard to carve out a modest but comfortable life in this city. We finally owned a home of our own. We used to daydream about our retirement, how we'd travel, spend quiet mornings in the garden, maybe even plant a few roses. Last month, on a whim, we signed up for a 2-week tour through Europe. It was lovely, absolutely lovely. On the flight back, I was still chatting with Harold about what we could do with the backyard. He had that soft, agreeable smile on his face as he said, "Whatever you want to plant, honey. I'll follow your lead." I never imagined how fast that happiness would nosedive. Lugging our suitcases up the driveway, Harold and I stood outside our home. I reached into my purse for the house key and tried to slide it into the lock, but it wouldn't go in. I tried again. Nothing. "Harold, try yours," I said, handing him the key. He struggled with it for a minute, then frowned. "Something's wrong with the lock." Wrong was an understatement. The entire lock had been changed. A surge of unease and fury rose up inside me. I rang the doorbell, its shrill tones slicing through the quiet neighborhood. After a long wait, the door finally creaked open, just a crack. There stood my daughter-in-law Camila, holding our baby grandson Owen in her arms. Her eyes were puffy with sleep, her expression annoyed, as if we were interrupting her dreams. She didn't even try to smile. "Oh, Evelyn. You're back," she said, barely hiding her indifference. "What's going on?" I asked, trying to stay calm. "Why was the lock changed?" Camila yawned dramatically. "The old one broke. I had someone replace it." "The old one broke?" I almost laughed out loud. "We were gone for 2 weeks and a top-grade German security lock just happened to fail? And you didn't think to tell us? Or give us the new keys?" I pressed. She looked away, shifted Owen in her arms and backed up a step, like she was suddenly nervous to have us so close. I forgot. That phrase again. So casual. So dismissive. She opened the door, but only enough for us to squeeze through, standing there like a bouncer guarding a nightclub. Harold and I exchanged a look. The kind that says this isn't right. Once inside, I froze. It was the same house, but it wasn't our home anymore. The space felt foreign. Our spacious, sunlit master bedroom had been completely transformed. Now it was packed with Owen's toys, a crib, foam mats, like a full-on daycare center. The best window in the house was smothered under a pair of thick cartoon print blackout curtains. Our clothes, Harold's jackets, my scarves, were crammed into the tiny guest room closet like an afterthought. Other everyday things we used regularly, gone. I took a deep breath, struggling to keep my voice steady. "Camila, this is our bedroom. Who gave you permission to make all these changes? Where are our things?" Camila set Owen down on the playmat and let him crawl around, clapping her hands like this was just another morning. She looked at me and shrugged as if it were the most reasonable thing in the world. "Evelyn, Owen's getting older. He cries at night. It just makes more sense to keep him in the master bedroom. All your things are packed up in the guest room," she said casually. "You two staying in there should be fine, right? It's quiet enough, isn't it?" Harold's face turned red, a vein pulsing at his temple. He jabbed a finger toward the master bedroom door, his voice rising. "You should have talked to us first. This is our home." Camila gave a little pout, hoisting Owen higher on her hip like he was her shield. "Harold, would it have made a difference if I had asked? Would you really have said yes?" He shrugged. "It's for Owen's benefit. And let's be honest, isn't this house eventually going to be his anyway? Better he gets used to it now, right?" Her words hit me like a slap. This house is going to be Owen's someday. Excuse me? We're still alive. And she's already speaking like she owns the deed? Harold and I worked our whole lives, scraping, saving, sacrificing, to buy this home. And now she thinks she can just assign rooms and futures with a few soft-spoken words and a condescending smile? This wasn't a conversation. This was a declaration, wrapped in polite tones but delivered with utter entitlement. I opened my mouth to speak, but no words came. My whole body trembled from the fury bubbling inside. I pointed at Camila, breath caught in my throat, but I couldn't get a single word out. Harold stepped beside me and gently touched my arm, his look calm but firm. "Not now. Wait for Frank." I understood. We needed our son to see this with his own eyes. That evening, Frank came home from work. Camila was on him in a second, taking his bag, fussing over him, greeting him with all the warmth of a doting wife. A completely different woman from the one who stood in our doorway that morning. I pulled Frank aside and laid it all out. What had happened while we were gone, the lock, the bedroom, everything. He looked stunned at first, truly caught off guard. But then, the excuses started. "Mom, come on, don't get upset," he said, taking my hand with that same tired expression I used to see when he wanted to avoid his chores as a kid. "Camila's doing her best. It's not easy handling a baby all day by herself. Owen's been waking up a lot at night. The master bedroom really does make it easier. Can't you and Dad just put up with it for now? It's not a big deal. We're family, right? No need to make this into something bigger." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Put up with it? No need to make a fuss? Harold's patience snapped. He slammed his hand on the table, making the teacups jump and spill. "Frank, that's completely out of line. This is our house. Why should we be the ones compromising?" Camila came rushing out of the room, cradling Owen dramatically, eyes already misted up. "Evelyn, Harold, I'm sorry, I really am. I just wanted what's best for Owen," she sniffled, dabbing at her perfectly dry cheeks. "Frank, your parents are upset," she whimpered, melting into his arms like some tragic heroine. Frank wrapped his arm around her protectively, murmuring, "It's okay. They're just overwhelmed. Don't take it personally." Then he turned back to us. "Mom, Dad, please don't be so hard on Camila. She's doing the best she can." That was the moment I gave up. Looking at my son, my own flesh and blood, defend her without a second thought, I felt the air leave my lungs. So this is what it's come to. Hoping he'd stand up for us? What a joke. I said nothing. I simply turned, walked into the guest room and shut the door hard behind me. This wasn't a home anymore. Not for me. Not like this. The next day things got even worse. Camila's mother, Chloe, showed up completely uninvited. She strolled in carrying a bag full of fruit, claiming she was there to visit her grandson Owen, but it was obvious she came to back Camila up. Chloe had always rubbed me the wrong way. She made some money years ago exporting textiles or some such thing, and ever since she carried herself like she was royalty. Always looking down her nose at everyone, flaunting her superiority. And worse, she was greedy. The type who doted on her own children but treated everyone else like they were put on earth to be squeezed dry. As soon as she stepped inside, she rushed to Camila's side, clutching her hand with over-the-top affection. "Hi, sweet girl," she cooed. "You've been through so much." You'd think Camila was a war refugee, not a grown woman squatting in someone else's house. Meanwhile, Chloe shot Harold and me a strange smile that barely passed for polite. "Evelyn, I heard you just got back from vacation," she said sweetly, her tone laced with something sharp. "Raising young children these days is no small feat. You two should really be more understanding." Then with the subtlety of a freight train she added, "A larger bedroom is just more practical, don't you think? Especially with how much Owen wakes up at night." There was. Clear as day. I let out a dry laugh. "Chloe, we are understanding. But tell me, who's out there understanding us?" My voice dropped cold. "This is our home, not a hotel. People don't just show up and rearrange rooms to their liking." Chloe's smile froze for a split second, but quickly reset itself into her usual mask of smug warmth. "Evelyn, now don't be so harsh," she said, feigning patience. "This house, eventually, will be Frank and Camila's responsibility. It's only natural. You two are still in good health. Why not head back to your hometown for a while? Fresh air, peace and quiet. It's perfect for your age. City life is far too stressful for seniors." And just like that, it all clicked. These two had it planned out from the start. Camila playing the helpless daughter-in-law, Chloe swooping in with that honey-dripping venom. Together they wanted us out. Back to the old house in the country? That place hadn't been lived in for years. It was barely standing. They weren't trying to help us. They were trying to erase us. My patience snapped. "Chloe," I said flatly, "we don't have the space for guests today. I think it's best you leave now." Her face darkened instantly. "What's that supposed to mean? You kicking me out?" Camila rushed over in a panic. "Mom, don't be upset. Evelyn's just trying to help, really." I couldn't take the theatrics anymore. I left them to their drama. For the next few days the house was colder than winter. Harold and I held our ground. We weren't giving up the master bedroom. We told Camila point blank to move her things out. She cried nearly every day, painting herself as the victim, saying we were bullying her. Frank, caught in the middle, looked helpless as ever. "Mom, can't you just be a little more flexible with Camila?" he'd mumble, trying to make peace. Watching him bend and fold under pressure made something inside me ache with disappointment and fury. After days of this unbearable standoff, I'd had enough. One afternoon, while Camila took Owen out for a walk, I finally made my move. I started clearing the nursery clutter out of our bedroom. Harold joined me in silence, not saying a word, but I saw the fire in his eyes. Together we moved the crib into the living room. Just as we were shifting the last foam mat, the front door opened. Camila walked in, and when she saw what we were doing, she shrieked like a siren. "What do you think you're doing? Who told you you could touch Owen's things?" She charged toward us, trying to drag the crib back. I stood firm. In the midst of the scuffle, she lost her footing and fell hard right onto the floor. She hadn't touched me. I didn't even graze her. It was her own clumsy step that took her down. But in a heartbeat, she burst into tears and let out a blood-curdling scream. "Help! Evelyn is abusing me." At some point, Chloe appeared at the top of the stairs. Clearly she'd been eavesdropping from below. She stormed up and pointed a trembling finger straight at my face, shrieking like a banshee. "Evelyn, you shameless old woman. How dare you lay a hand on my daughter? My daughter married into your family for a better life, not to be humiliated like this. If we're not welcome here, then maybe my daughter and grandson should just pack up and leave." Her words hit a nerve I had been silently nursing. "Perfect," I snapped, stepping forward. "Then why don't you start packing now? The sooner you leave, the better." Right then Frank walked in, home from work, keys still in hand, only to find his mother, his wife, and his mother-in-law locked in a screaming match in the middle of the hallway. "What is going on in here?" he shouted. "Everyone just stop." But shouting didn't solve a damn thing. Nothing was resolved. No one moved a single item out of the master bedroom. And what was left behind was a mess of tension and emotional wreckage. The next day, Harold and I went out early to the farmer's market to buy some fresh produce, trying, desperately, to feel like we still had a home to return to. But when we got back, arms heavy with groceries, we were met with something that made our stomachs drop. The lock had been changed again. This time it was a high-end biometric system, one of those fingerprint and code combinations. My hands trembled as I dropped the grocery bag to the porch. Rage rose from the pit of my stomach like wildfire. I slammed my fist against the steel door over and over. "Camila, open this door. Come out here right now." I screamed, my voice raw with helpless fury. Behind the thick door came her cold, cutting voice, too calm for someone who had just locked her in-laws out of their own home. "Evelyn, Frank and I talked it over. We've decided we're staying here. Owen needs stability. I've packed up your things. They're in the storage closet by the garage. The key's in your mailbox. And if you try anything," she added without pause, "we'll call the police for unlawful entry." I froze. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Camila, you've gone too far." I shouted, my voice cracking. "This is my house. Who gave you the right to change the locks?" Harold stood beside me, squeezing my hand, his own fury barely contained. His voice trembled as he yelled, "Camila, where's Frank? Let him speak for himself. What the hell is going on?" But instead of Frank, it was Chloe who answered, her voice shrill and smug from somewhere deep inside. "Stop shouting already. Just go away. Old people should act their age. Stop fighting with the younger generation. This house is going to be Frank and Camila's eventually anyway. You two should leave before you start causing real trouble." That was it. My vision went black for a moment. I nearly collapsed right there on the porch. This was theft. This was betrayal. This was war. The home Harold and I built, paid for with our sacrifices and decades of work, had just been stolen from beneath us. Not by strangers, but by our own son and daughter-in-law. I'd spent my entire life teaching children the difference between right and wrong, between kindness and cruelty. Yet here I was, in my old age, being taught a brutal new lesson in human nature. Harold and I stood there for a long time, silent as statues, as if hoping the nightmare would end. The porch light flickered above us, casting ghostly shadows on the front steps. Even the house seemed embarrassed to witness our shame. A few neighbors passed by. They didn't stop, but their eyes said everything. Pity, confusion, maybe even a bit of gossip starting to form. I could feel the heat in my cheeks. It wasn't just rage anymore, it was grief. Everything I had treasured, everything I thought was safe, was crumbling right in front of me. No matter how many times I called Frank's phone, it went unanswered. Deep down, I knew Camila was keeping him on a tight leash, probably watching every message that came through. With no other choice, Harold and I dragged ourselves to a nearby motel. The room was cramped, the sheets smelled of bleach, and the mattress was hard and unforgiving. I lay there staring at the ceiling until dawn. I didn't sleep a wink. Harold tossed and turned beside me, sighing into the dark. "Evelyn," he whispered, his voice soft and aching, "don't let this eat you alive. It's not worth it. We'll figure something out tomorrow. Let's just rest for now." Tears welled in my eyes. My voice broke as I turned to him. "Harold, what did we spend our whole lives chasing? We poured everything into raising that boy, even helped with the down payment on that house." Memories surged like a tide I couldn't hold back. When Frank and Camila got married, Harold and I emptied nearly all of our life savings to help with the down payment on their first home. We even dipped into our retirement fund, money we had spent decades putting away for old age. Back then, Camila's sweet talk dripped like honey. "Evelyn, you're so kind," she would say in that soft voice. "You're even better to me than my own mother." During her pregnancy, she was constantly sick, vomiting at the sight of any food. I cooked for her every day, bringing water and herbal tea without complaint, doing everything I could to ease her misery. She would smile and say, "Mom, only your food stays down." Then Owen was born, and with Camila struggling to produce milk, the baby cried constantly, tiny and fragile, his cheeks always wet with tears. Harold and I took turns holding him through the night so Camila could rest. I sat by her side through her recovery. She once said to me so sincerely, "Evelyn, you know so much. I trust you with Owen more than anyone." We poured ourselves into their little family, gave them everything we had. No. This was the thanks we got. Betrayal wrapped in baby blankets and fake tears. Sometimes, no matter how much you give, some people only take, and then turn on you the moment they get what they want. I could feel the fury simmering beneath my skin. That house was ours. It was ours. Who the hell gave them the right to claim it? The next morning, I forced myself to sit up straight, pulled on a coat, and headed out with Harold to the community mediation center. I didn't want this to go public. Family matters should stay private when possible. I was hoping we could resolve this quietly. Mrs. Reynolds, the community liaison, was warm and attentive. She listened carefully as we explained what had happened. She nodded, furrowed her brow in concern, and promised to reach out to Camila. Not long after, Camila arrived, with Chloe close behind. And before Mrs. Reynolds could even get a word in, Chloe launched into full performance mode. "Mrs. Reynolds, please, you have to help us," she cried, flinging a dramatic arm in our direction. She was weeping, her face contorted with indignation, her voice trembling as though she were recounting a national tragedy. "My daughter Camila married into their family and has never had a day of peace. These two heartless people torment her day and night. And now they're trying to throw her out. Can you imagine? They're trying to kick a young mother into the street." Camila sniffled beside her, trembling, her sobs perfectly timed. "Mama, Mrs. Reynolds, I don't know what to do anymore. I just want to raise Owen in peace. I just want to give Frank a stable home. But Evelyn, she's so traditional. She expects me to bow and scrape for everything. She wants to control every breath I take." I sat there, stunned, my hands trembling with rage. My chest tightened as I struggled to breathe. "This is insane. You're twisting everything." I cried, my voice breaking. "Mrs. Reynolds, please don't fall for this act. The house is mine. They're the ones who kicked us out." Chloe jumped in before I could say another word. "Your house," she sneered. "You mean Frank's house? The one he paid for? You think it makes sense for two old people to hoard a big house while a young family sleeps in a shoebox? Why don't you go find some retirement condo and stop clinging like barnacles?" I nearly laughed. Their shamelessness had crossed into performance art. Mrs. Reynolds sat frozen between us, her kind face caught in a mix of confusion and discomfort. "Evelyn, Chloe," she said gently, "this is a difficult situation. Maybe we all need to compromise just a little. After all, you are family. Family. That word rang hollow. Everything was upside down. The truth twisted until we looked like the villains while the liars wept on cue. I looked at Mrs. Reynolds' kindly, conciliatory expression and knew right then that this would lead nowhere. Some people are born performers. They weaponize their tears. They script their sobs. They win pity with precision. After the meeting, I walked out without saying a word. Harold followed close behind, glancing at me with concern. "Don't let them get to you, sweetheart," he said quietly. "They're not reasonable. We don't need to stoop to their level." I stopped walking. Turned to face him. "No, Harold," I said, voice steady. "We are getting that house back. This isn't about pride. It's about dignity." Back at the hotel, I finally managed to reach Frank on the phone. His voice was timid, barely a whisper, like a child sneaking around in the dark. "Mom, Camila just got a little carried away. Don't be upset, okay? I'll talk to her, I promise. Maybe you and Dad can stay at the hotel for a few more days? Once she cools down, I'll come get you." Disappointment hit me like a punch to the chest. "Frank, what am I to you?" I snapped. "Your wife kicked me and your father out of our own home, and you expect me to just be patient? Tell me, when exactly will she calm down? A year? 2? After your father and I are dead and buried?" He went silent on the other end. After a long pause, he finally mumbled, "Mom, please don't say that. Camila just has a bit of a temper." I hung up without another word. I couldn't even summon the strength to argue anymore. 2 days later, Frank showed up at the hotel. He looked awful, gaunt, eyes sunken with dark circles, like he hadn't slept in days. As soon as he saw me, he blurted out, "Mom, I'm so sorry. I really am." I didn't say a word. He fidgeted, wringing his hands until his knuckles turned white. "Mom, Camila found a small condo downtown she really likes. She says it'd be better for Owen, closer to school and safer. But we're short on the down payment. It's just $30,000. His eyes darted nervously across my face, watching for signs of a blow-up. "If you and Dad could help us out just one more time." He hesitated, then added with a hopeful smile, "After we move into that place, we'll give you the big house back. I promise." I stared at him, my voice low and deliberate. "Give it back to us? Frank, the house already belongs to us. What are you even saying? This wasn't your idea, was it? Camila sent you, didn't she?" His face flushed deep red. He dropped his gaze and couldn't look me in the eye. "Mom, Camila's just thinking about Owen's future." And that's when it clicked. The full scheme laid bare. They weren't just squatting in our home. They wanted me to fund their escape plan, to buy them a brand new place so they could vacate ours and act like they were doing us a favor. Did she think I was stupid? Did she see me as some bottomless atom? And Frank, my own son, was letting her pull every string. When greed blinds the eyes, even love becomes currency. I forced down my rage and said quietly, "Frank, your father and I will need to discuss it." The relief on his face was instant, like a storm had passed. "Thanks, Mom. I knew you'd understand. I knew you still care." Watching him walk away, all smiles, I felt an icy wave of grief wash over me. This boy I raised, this man was no longer mine. The moment the door closed, I turned to Harold. "There's something off about this whole thing," I said. "Camila's up to something. I can feel it." Harold frowned deeply. "Those two are trouble. Always have been." We agreed, we'd play along for now. Pretend we were considering it. But behind the scenes I started paying attention. And what I saw made my blood run cold. Chloe was at our house every single day. Sometimes she stayed for hours. Other times I spotted her outside chatting quietly with a group of unfamiliar men dressed like real estate agents. Dark blazers, leather folios, shiny shoes and quick glances. A chilling thought hit me. Were they trying to sell our house? "Harold," I said one afternoon, clutching his arm, "I think Chloe's trying to list the house. She's always there. And she's been meeting with what looks like agents." He looked stunned. "No way. They wouldn't dare. The deed is still in our name." I shook my head. Don't underestimate people when money's involved. Desperate people can do terrifying things. Harold didn't argue. He just nodded grimly. Because no matter how well a fox hides its tail, eventually it slips. You just have to be patient. And watch. So I made up my mind, I would no longer wait for the next attack. I would strike first. Years ago I had a student named Janice. She was one of the sharpest minds I ever taught. Diligent, principled, and unshakably kind. Today, Janice was a respected attorney in the city and one of the few people I knew I could trust. I reached out to her, asked if we could meet. When we sat down, I told her everything, every bitter detail of what had happened since Harold and I returned home from our trip. Janice listened, her brow darkening with each word. "Evelyn," she said firmly, "this isn't just a family feud anymore. This is bordering on criminal property theft." She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Don't worry. We're going to handle this the right way. The first thing we need is evidence. Something solid that proves intent, proof that they're trying to steal what's rightfully yours." Evidence. That's when it hit me. Back when Camila was pregnant, I had been worried about her staying home alone. Not just for her safety but also because I knew how lonely it could be, how unpredictable pregnancy can get. So I installed a small security camera in what used to be her bedroom, now our master bedroom. The camera had been synced to an old mobile app, and though I hadn't used it in ages, I was fairly sure the equipment was still there, tucked discreetly into the corner. Back at the hotel, I dug out my old phone, fingers trembling as I opened the app. For a moment, nothing happened. And then, connected. The camera was still active. A small miracle. I adjusted the angle remotely just enough so it had a clear view of the living room. Then I left the phone propped beside me and began recording quietly, discreetly, watching, waiting. For 3 days I barely moved. I sat glued to the screen while Harold paced the room, helpless and fuming. And then on the third afternoon, it happened. The footage showed only Camila and Chloe in the living room. Owen was asleep in the other room. Camila sat back on the couch, one leg crossed over the other, sipping tea. She spoke casually like someone discussing what movie to stream. "Mom, the buyer's lined up. Contract signings next week. The agent says the location and layout are great. We should get a solid offer." Chloe smiled, slow and hungry. "That's wonderful, baby girl. Once the money comes in, we'll use it to pay for your brother's wedding condo. The rest," she said, tapping her fingers together, "we'll use for a down payment on something smaller for you." Camila grinned. "And Frank? How do we explain it to him?" Chloe's tone dropped, quiet but still clear as glass on the recording. "Tell him his parents got sick. Say it was urgent. Say the only way to afford treatment was to sell the house. By the time he figures out the truth, the money will already be in our hands. What's he going to do? Cry about it? And those 2 old relics? Let them rot in that dump of a country house. Maybe they'll finally die out there and save us the trouble." Camila burst out laughing. "Mom, you're brilliant. Frank won't suspect a thing. He'll probably thank us for saving his parents." Chloe chuckled darkly. "You have to outsmart the fools, sweetie. Once the house is sold, they can prepare for the funeral, whether they know it or not." I froze. Every word felt like a blade across my skin. They weren't just planning to steal our home. They were already imagining our deaths. What infuriated me most wasn't just the schemes or the lies. It was how easily they had deceived my son. The boy I raised with love and sacrifice, the man I thought I knew, had been turned into nothing more than a puppet in their game. To Camila and Chloe, he was just a gullible fool, a pawn to be maneuvered around with a few sweet words and well-timed tears. I clenched the phone in my hand so tightly my nails dug into my palm, but I didn't even feel the pain. "Camila. Chloe. You think I'm weak? You're about to learn exactly how wrong you are. When familial love is twisted into a weapon, what remains is a betrayal so chilling it leaves only one response: fury and action." With trembling hands, I saved the recording and immediately sent it to Janice. There was a moment of silence after she listened. Then I heard her inhale sharply on the other end of the line. "Evelyn, this recording is explosive. They're not even trying to hide it. This is clear-cut fraud and malicious intent to seize property. Don't worry. With this kind of evidence, our odds of winning just went through the roof." Janice walked me through the legal roadmap: what to preserve, how to document, how to stay calm. Under her guidance, the chaos in my mind began to clear. My rage hardened into resolve. "Camila, Chloe, you pegged me for a soft-hearted pushover. You thought kindness meant weakness. But justice doesn't disappear. It only waits for someone brave enough to bring it back into the light. Janice advised me not to confront them yet. She began drafting a formal cease and desist letter. Sharp, direct, and timed to deliver maximum impact. Meanwhile, I started monitoring Chloe's behavior more closely. Just as I suspected, she continued meeting with different real estate agents near the house. I snapped photos from a distance, capturing her pointing at our windows, gesturing like she owned the place. The most shocking part? I posed as a prospective buyer. One of the agents, chatty, clueless, let slip that a seller named Camila was eager to close a deal on a high-value family home in our neighborhood. Apparently, she and her mother were motivated and open to quick offers. More proof. The noose was tightening. Once I had enough documentation, I called Frank again. This time I didn't attack. I used a gentler touch. Frank, I said, voice calm, someone told me Camila's been talking to real estate agents about selling our house. Is that true? On the other end, Frank sounded stunned, scrambling. What? Mom, no. That's crazy. Where'd you even hear that? Camila's not selling anything. She's just been thinking about buying a smaller place, that's all. And she's barely left the house lately. She's been with Owen. He was panicked, eager to convince me. He swore up and down that Camila had no such intentions. That she was misunderstood. That she was just moody sometimes, but good at heart. He pleaded with me to give her the benefit of the doubt. And as I listened to him defend her, something inside me cracked. Was he really so blind? So naive? Or worse, was he pretending not to see? Had he already crossed the line from bystander to accomplice? Whatever the case, the disappointment cut deep. There's something particularly cruel about being betrayed not by malice, but by the hollow echo of a love you thought was real. But I couldn't push him. Not yet. If he still had a sliver of doubt left in him, he needed space to see the truth on his own. According to the agent I had spoken to, Camila and Chloe had scheduled a private showing for a serious buyer. An important offer, the agent had whispered, practically salivating. The visit was set for Saturday at 3 p.m. Camila and her mother were eager to close. I wasn't about to let them. Harold, Janice, and I made our plan. Every detail discussed. Every risk considered. I also spoke with a few of our neighbors, women who had long held suspicions about Chloe and Camila but had stayed quiet. When they heard what I'd been through, they agreed without hesitation to stand beside me and testify. At exactly 2:50 p.m. on Saturday, Harold, Janice, a few supportive neighbors, and I gathered casually around the flower beds just outside the house. On the surface, like we were enjoying a mild afternoon chat. Sure enough, a few minutes later, Camila and Chloe emerged from the front door, beaming as they led a well-dressed middle-aged couple down the walkway. From their faces, it was obvious. These people had just toured the house and they liked what they saw. Camila was glowing with pride. Chloe wore the smug look of someone who thought she'd won. But the moment their eyes landed on us, the smiles vanished. Camila froze, color draining from her face in an instant. Her steps faltered. Chloe recovered more quickly, more practiced in performance. She attempted to steer the couple away with forced cheerfulness. Evelyn. Harold. What a surprise to see you here. Camila stammered, trying to paste a smile back onto her face. These two, they're just friends. Just stopping by for a visit. Chloe jumped in right behind her. Yes. Just a casual walkthrough. No big deal. I smiled coldly and stepped forward, cutting through their lies like a knife through soft fruit. Friends. I said, my voice calm but pointed. Because to me they look an awful lot like buyers brought here by a realtor. Then I turned directly to the couple. Ma'am, sir, I assume you're here to see the house? To potentially make an offer. The husband adjusted his glasses, confused. The wife glanced between us, her expression wary. The man finally spoke, hesitant. Yes, we were told the property was available. May I ask, who are you? I straightened my back and raised my voice, loud and clear for everyone to hear. I'm Evelyn Brooks, the actual legal owner of this home. Not Camila. Not Chloe. Me. A stunned silence fell. Lies crumble fast when exposed to daylight. And in that moment, every smug smirk and careful spin they had crafted collapsed. Camila's face turned a ghostly shade of white. Her lips parted but no sound came out. Chloe, ever the fighter, tried to lash back. Evelyn, stop this nonsense. You know full well this house was meant for Camila and Frank. It was part of the plan before the wedding. You're just trying to take it back now? What, you want to see our family homeless? I didn't even flinch. A plan. I snapped. Is there a contract? A deed? Anything notarized? No. Then it's not a plan, it's a fantasy. This isn't miscommunication. This is fraud. I reached into my bag, pulled out the deed and held it up high for everyone to see. Here, I said. Look closely. My name. And Harold's. Not theirs. The couple exchanged another quick look, eyes wide. The wife whispered something to her husband. He turned to us, clearly unsettled. We had no idea there was a dispute. We were not interested anymore. And just like that they bolted. Gone before Camila or Chloe could offer another lie. The crowd around us began to murmur. Then it rose to open disapproval. Anna, one of my longtime neighbors, stepped forward. Camila, Chloe, this is disgraceful. Evelyn and Harold worked their whole lives for this house. You don't just take that from someone. Dan, a retired school principal, chimed in. Throwing your in-laws out and trying to secretly sell their home? That's not just wrong, it's criminal. Chloe's face flushed crimson. Still, she held her ground, voice rising with panic. This is our business. None of you have the right to get involved. Camila, meanwhile, cowered behind her mother, her head down, face burning with shame. The truth, when spoken clearly and seen plainly, is the most powerful weapon we have. It burns through deception like fire through dry grass. And in that moment, surrounded by neighbors holding the deed, watching them squirm, I felt a release. The burden I'd been carrying, of being disbelieved, dismissed, humiliated, lifted just a little. Then, amid the noise and tension, another voice called out. Mom. We all turned. Frank had arrived, clearly summoned by one of the neighbors. When Frank arrived and saw the standoff unfolding in front of the house, he froze. His eyes darted from the crowd to Camila, to Chloe, then to me, uncertain, alarmed, but still clinging to some desperate hope that it could all be explained away. Then like clockwork he rushed to defend her. Mom. Dad. What are you doing? He shouted, his voice strained. Can't we just talk about this privately? Why do you have to make a scene in front of everyone? Camila, seeing him, broke into tears instantly and threw herself into his arms like a fallen heroine in a bad play. Frank, she sobbed. Your parents, they're humiliating me. They never wanted me to be happy. They hate the life we've built. They just want to tear it down. Frank held her close, glaring at us over her shoulder with disappointment and reproach. Mom, even if Camila made mistakes, this public shaming, it's too much. I stared at him, my son who I had raised with every ounce of strength I had, and all I could feel was a hollow ache of heartbreak. Even now he was standing up for her. I didn't speak. I didn't argue. I just reached into my bag, pulled out my phone and unlocked the recording. Frank, I said coldly, you think we're being unfair? That we're making her out to be the villain? Then listen for yourself. You tell me if this is what a misunderstanding sounds like. I hit play. The voices rang out, sharp and undeniable, in the dead silence of the front walkway. The buyer's already lined up. Contract signing is next week. We'll use the money for your brother's condo deposit first. Just tell Frank his parents suddenly got sick, had to sell the house to pay medical bills. Let those two old fools rot in that broken-down dump in the country. Better if they just die out there so we don't have to look at them anymore. Frank's such an idiot, he'd never see it coming. Each line landed like a blow. The neighbors stopped murmuring. Even the breeze seemed to vanish. Frank's face shifted in slow, excruciating stages. Confusion, disbelief, horror, and finally, soul-deep shame. His body locked up, jaw tight, fists clenched at his sides. Camila trembled in his arms. Her breath caught. Her mouth opened, but she had nothing to say. And then as the final sentence faded, the silence crashed down. Frank stepped back. Hard. Camila stumbled as he pushed her off, barely catching her balance. He pointed at her, hand shaking, voice shredded and raw. Camila, how could you to my parents? He couldn't even finish. His chest rose and felt like he was about to collapse. Camila panicked, reaching for his sleeve, her face white as snow. Frank, please, it's not what you think. Let me explain. My mom made me say those things. Chloe, pale and breathless, collapsed onto the concrete stoop. It was just talk. That was all. Just venting, we never meant any of it. It was all just talk. I took a step forward, my voice cold as steel. Just talk. I repeated. Is that what you call meeting with buyers, drafting contracts, lying to Frank's face? I turned to my son. Frank, now you see the kind of wife you married. And the kind of mother-in-law who taught her how to lie and scheme. The worst betrayal doesn't come from enemies. It comes from the ones you trust the most. Frank's eyes closed slowly, and when they opened again they were glassy with tears. He didn't speak. He didn't have to. His silence, his tears, were louder than any scream. This was the day he realized he had been played. That he had defended a woman who smiled at him while planning to destroy his parents. That the love he believed in had been laced with poison from the very start. Camila and Chloe shrank before the weight of truth. They no longer looked arrogant or defiant, just exposed, humiliated, and very, very small. Janice stepped forward, face composed, voice firm. She held out the envelope she'd prepared days ago. Janice's voice cut through the heavy silence. Sharp, precise, utterly devoid of emotion. Miss Camila. Miss Chloe. This is a formal legal notice, issued on behalf of Evelyn and Harold Brooks, whom I represent fully in this matter. Your actions, including but not limited to unauthorized lock changes, illegal occupation of private property, and attempted fraudulent sale, constitute a direct and serious violation of my client's property rights under civil law. According to applicable statutes, your conduct qualifies as intentional infringement and may rise to the level of real estate fraud. Unless you immediately cease all wrongful activity, vacate the property, and issue a formal written apology and restitution, we will proceed with litigation without hesitation. And let me be clear, this is not just a civil matter. Should the case move forward, you may be held criminally liable, including, but not limited to, charges that could result in imprisonment. At the words fraud, criminal liability, and prison, Chloe visibly crumbled. Her knees buckled and she gripped Camila's arm like a drowning woman grasping for the last bit of shore. Camila, say something. Apologize. Tell them we're sorry, she gasped, voice shaking like a leaf. It was me, I told you to do it, I didn't mean any of it. I don't want to go to jail. Camila's last thread of composure snapped. She dropped to her knees, clutching my leg with both arms, her tears soaking into my pant leg as she sobbed. I was wrong. Please, Evelyn, I was so wrong. I let it all get to me. I was desperate. It was my fault. I never should have listened to my mom. Please forgive me. I'll never do anything like this again. I swear I'll treat you and Harold with respect, with care. I'll be better. She cried hysterically, an unrecognizable shell of the smug, conniving woman who once schemed to throw us out of our own home. But it was far too late. Apologies spoken through trembling lips could never rebuild trust broken by deliberate cruelty. I looked down at her, unmoved. Regret, when it comes too late, is no longer noble. It's a symptom of consequence, not conscience. I gestured for Chloe to leave. For now. We'll talk tonight, I said. Not here. Not like this. That evening, under the weight of nightfall, the dining room fell into an unbearable hush. Only the sound of Owen playing quietly in the next room reminded us the world was still turning. Harold and I sat on one side of the table. Frank and Camila sat opposite, their postures sunken, eyes downcast. No one dared speak. So I did. Frank. Camila. This ends tonight, I said, my voice steady and stripped of all warmth. First, this house belongs to Harold and me. It always has. It always will. The deed bears our names. That's not up for debate. Second, Camila, your behavior and your mother's has crossed every imaginable line. If not for Owen, if not for that little boy who still needs his mother, we would have already filed criminal charges. From this moment on, Chloe is not to step foot in this home. If she so much as stirs up gossip or attempts another stunt, I will press charges. Third, you two are on your own. Harold and I are done supporting your lifestyle. If you want a good life, a good school for your son, a new apartment, you'll earn it. No more handouts. Harold leaned forward, his voice low but firm. Your marriage? That's your responsibility, he said. If you want to stay together, it'll be under new terms. Camila, you will sign a written agreement. One that clearly outlines your promise to never again act against this family's interests. One more violation and that's it. If either of you can't honor that, if you, Frank, don't believe this marriage can be salvaged, then we will support your decision to end it. And let me be clear. Owen is our grandson. If custody needs to be re-evaluated, we are willing to step in. We won't abandon him. Frank pressed his palms against his face, shaking. When he finally looked up, his eyes were bloodshot. His gaze drifted toward Camila, expression twisted in pain and uncertainty. His voice cracked, but every word was deliberate, unwavering. Camila, do you understand what I'm saying to you? What my parents said, that's exactly what I feel too. If you still want a future with me, if you still want to share a life together, you need to mean your apology. You need to make this right. You have to let go of the lies, the schemes, the manipulation, especially toward my mother. If you can't do that, then we'll have no choice but to divorce. Camila broke down in sobs, nodding desperately through her tears. I will, I promise I will, Frank. Just please don't leave me, don't leave Owen. She turned to me and Harold, voice pleading and broken. Evelyn, Harold, I was wrong. I see that now. I'll change. I have to change. But remorse, no matter how dramatic, does not undo betrayal. Trust, once shattered, never returns in the same form. A family is not a courtroom. It does not run on verdicts. But it does need rules. And without them, love can twist into something unrecognizable. As I watched my son finally draw a boundary, finally see things clearly, my heart ached with a mess of emotions. Pride, sadness, grief for the years wasted, hope that maybe now he'd stop drifting and start leading. The next morning, Harold and I returned home. Our real home. Camila and Frank had spent the early hours restoring the master bedroom to its original state. Our belongings were back in place, neatly folded, respectfully arranged. The room had the quiet dignity it once carried. Camila, subdued and deferential, greeted us with polite words and a careful smile. She hovered nearby, offering help, asking after our comfort in a tone so different from before that it felt almost foreign. Chloe, however, wasn't done. Around noon she showed up at our door, trying one last time to charm her way in. I didn't give her the chance. I opened the door just wide enough to speak, then made myself very clear. Chloe, I don't want any more contact with you. If you step foot on this property again, I will call the police and press charges for harassment. She stood on the porch, stunned and humiliated, trying to string together something that sounded like an apology. But seeing the steel in my eyes, she knew there would be no second act. She turned and walked away, hollow and defeated. That evening I removed every trace of her from our house. Every ugly knick-knack, every item they had added that didn't belong, I cleared it all out. The home breathed again. It felt fresh, clean. Sometimes a home doesn't just need walls and doors. It needs boundaries. It needs air. And finally, as I lay back on the bed in our restored master bedroom, sunlight warming my face through the window, I felt peace, real peace, for the first time in weeks. The storm had passed. It had been ugly, painful, necessary, but it had passed. The lesson left behind: we may look like soft-hearted old folks on the outside, but we are not weak. And we are not naive. That afternoon Harold and I sat down and spoke openly, more honestly than we had in a long time. We owned our mistakes too. We had coddled Frank too much, excused too many red flags. We had let Camila's early manipulations slide, thinking they were just the jitters of a young wife. That leniency had cost us. So we made a promise: going forward we would live for ourselves. Our retirement years would not be dictated by guilt or obligation. We would no longer be their safety net. If Frank and Camila wanted a better life, they'd have to build it, just as we once did. We planned 2 trips a year no matter what came up. Harold threw himself into his love of gardening, and I joined him, restoring the once neglected little patch behind the house into a blooming sanctuary. We bought new seeds, new gloves, new tools. We spent mornings digging and evenings watering. And each time a fresh sprout pushed up through the soil, I felt it in my chest too. Something new, something hopeful growing again. The second half of life. It's ours now. No one else gets to decide how we live it. As for Frank and Camila, they'll walk their own road. Maybe together. Maybe not. But either way, Harold and I will be just fine. Because we've reclaimed more than our home. We've reclaimed ourselves.